Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Tuesday Training. I hope you're having a fantastic week. As always,
we are live from Austin, Texas, right here at Insurance Syndicate headquarters. And man, we have a great show for you.
What is up? Good morning. Happy Tuesday. Hope you guys are having a fantastic week as we get rolling. Got a fun show for you today. We're going to do something a little different. Wanted to have a little fun. I'll get into that in a minute. As always, this show is brought to you by DFY CRM. Big props to them for not only supporting the show, but also providing one of the best tools in the insurance space for agents out there. Doesn't matter if you're in the Medicare, life insurance, ACA world. There's hundreds and hundreds of agents, maybe even thousands that are using this platform. I'm one of them. Absolutely love it. And we are about to launch. I think I talked about this recently. We're about to launch one of their new automated webinar platforms that they've got. I've been building it out. Super excited about it. If you're looking for a CRM, man, give them a holler. Connect with my buddy Eric Fierro, and he will get you fixed up. We do have a little bit of news before I jump into the topic. Nothing necessarily massive, but we've got a few things. So bear with me a second. I want to pull up just a couple of items for you. Number one right here, it is official. Dr. Mehmet Oz is absolutely sworn in as CMS administrator. He passed through, not necessarily with flying colors. I think it was a 55-45 decision, something like right in there. But I just saw this article popped up on Healthcare Dive this morning, actually yesterday, published on the 21st. But pretty simple. Dr. Mehmet Oz was sworn in as CMS administrator back on Friday, cementing his role, right? It goes on. I'm not going to go through this whole article, but there it is right there. Yeah, 53-45 vote along party lines that slid him in there. One of the things that is interesting about Mehmet Oz is he's also a licensed agent in about 20 states, including, from my understanding, certification for Medicare Advantage plans, etc. So when you think of him, he's also kind of one of us in some sense because he is a broker that is licensed, certified, and RTS for Medicare Advantage plans. Whether or not he actually does it, I have no idea. But I thought that was kind of interesting. So I think that gives him a little more understanding. I mean, if he's just licensed, that's one thing. But if he actually wrote a few plans, like I don't think he's out there trying to market himself and sell plans. But if he has written a few plans, maybe he gets a little bit more understanding of some of the stuff that we go through, some of the turbulence, I guess, some of the problems that exist in that space is what it is. Moving along, I got one more. This one is a little more interesting, I think. The headline here is that when should 6 drugs count as one? And the answer could be a big deal for pharma. So as you know, Medicare has been doing price negotiations, right? And they have basically 10 years or 10 drugs a year starting it that they're allowed to negotiate. But those numbers go up as the program continues throughout the next several years. So Novo Nordisk is suing the federal government, saying that they're not following the rules. And I'm not going to go through this whole article, but basically Novo argues that the federal government should be forced to negotiate the price for 6 of its insulin drugs separately, even though they all contain the same active ingredient. The government, of course, disagrees. There are 6 specific drugs in the lawsuit under Novo Nordisk. Basically, those drugs are Fiasp, Fiasp FlexTouch, Fiasp PenFill, Novolog, Novolog FlexPen, and Novolog PenFill. Medicare and the federal government wants to negotiate the price of those 6 drugs as one drug because they all contain the same ingredient, insulin aspart. So understanding that, I think that kind of makes sense. Personally, And of course, Novo doesn't. Novo says, nope, you have to negotiate those separately. So you have to negotiate the price of FIASP separately from Novolog FlexPen, which means that if they only get 10 drugs a year for a while, that limits their ability to effectively negotiate those drugs. So I'm going to side with the government on this one because I think it's in the best interest of the beneficiary at the end, right? The end user, that they should be able to negotiate all of those drugs together, not separately. So pretty simple there. I'm going to put that in the group. You guys can check it out. And then one more, and this one won't take long either, but this is a pretty interesting, and I'd like to go back and watch the video. I haven't seen this. This was at Medicarians. I missed this. I was at Medicarians, but I missed this specific talk or this interview. But it was an interview with Sachin Jain, the CEO of SCAN Health Plan, who, if you're not familiar with SCAN, they're a very solid, very reputable Medicare Advantage plan, started in California, primarily Southern California, and spread. Now I believe they're in about 4 states. I might be off on that, but I know they're in California, Arizona, New Mexico, and now in Texas. We are starting to write them more ourselves as they've grown. But he talks about some of the issues within Medicare Advantage plans. Like it's his, and he even says it like right at the top, like my baby is ugly, right? He created a Medicare Advantage plan, him and his group. And then now he's talking about how Medicare Advantage has not fulfilled its original goal of actually reducing spend on original Medicare or spend on the Medicare program at all. It says right here, Medicare Advantage was conceived as a way to rein in Medicare cost and to offer seniors more choice. But the program, while exploding in popularity, more than 54% of Medicare eligible population now enrolled in an MA plan, has not fulfilled its original mission of reducing the federal government's cost. He goes through a few more details on that. I think it's a great article. I don't want to sit here and beat it to death. I just want to get it in the group, but I wanted to point it out. And this is what I love about it is he's not out of touch with the problems that we face as an agent at field level when we're trying to decide or help, I should say, a beneficiary decide what is the best option for them. So for example, like in the interview, he described the affordability crisis in traditional Medicare, right? That's Medicare A and B. He's not talking Medicare Advantage yet, but he's talking about the affordability crisis that already exists in original Medicare, right? So if you take a married couple with an average income of about $54,000, that is a pretty average income. Like you can look, you can get this data easy, but last I checked, the average income of a 65-year-old is about $41,000. So I'm guessing that he is right on top of that with the joint income of $54K, although I haven't verified it. But he's saying, hey, I'm describing a married couple here with an average income of about $54,000. They become eligible for Medicare. They have to pay a Part B premium of $185 per month. Then they have to pay for a Part D prescriptions coverage, and then hopefully some supplemental benefits. Otherwise, they're just going to be running around with their nose wide open at 20% uncapped copayments. So they've spent their entire life paying into Medicare taxes, and at the very end of their life, they have the privilege of paying $12,000 annually out of their $54,000 income to cover health expenses. So it's a fundamentally broken system that does not look anything like what it was originally imagined when it was created back in, thought of in the, I want to say the 50s, maybe early 60s before LBJ grabbed it, put it into play. It is in this context, as he says, of a lack of affordability that MA, Medicare Advantage, should be compared with Medicare. But at the same time, it says that Jain did not gloss over the real problems within MA, the cost and nefarious practices that dupe seniors. And again, this is coming from someone who runs a Medicare Advantage carrier, one of the more reputable ones out there. He says, I think the program is expensive, and I think we need to fix aspects of it. And there are bad actors who've run away with risk adjustment, and we need to fix that. The in-home assessment game has gotten out of control. We offer supplemental benefits that a lot of people don't even use. So there's a lot of deceptive practices in the industry, and a lot of people don't necessarily actually know what it is that they're buying. So I'm the first person He's saying, I'm the first person to call my baby ugly. But you know what? The other baby is uglier, talking about original Medicare. Later on, he added that MA may cost more to the federal government, right? But it may also be because it does more. And that's just something we don't talk about enough. And that is absolutely fact. I was reading a garbage article yesterday that some idiot wrote on Yahoo Finance, some freelance bullshit journalist. Pardon me there. I get a little fired up on him sometimes. But one of the comments that she made in her article, and was absolutely incorrect, was that Medicare Advantage plans are just running around and there's no baseline of coverage, which is crap, because we know that all Medicare Advantage plans, regardless of who it is, regardless of what state that it's in, they all have a baseline of coverage they must follow. They have to at least provide benefits and coverage equal to Medicare, what original Medicare offers. They have to at least offer an A and B coverage that is an 80-20 plan. That's it. Obviously, we know that if a Medicare Advantage plan only came out with benefits equal to Medicare, but put you in a network, even though it may or may not save you some Part B costs, like, they're not going to get any action. People are just going to stick with the original Medicare most of the time. So obviously, Medicare Advantage plans learned how to beef up their plan beyond what original Medicare offers. And he's talking about that here. He says, MA may cost more. I'm going to repeat it. MA may cost more, but it may also be because it does more. And that's just not something we talk about enough, which we should be addressing and doing more for the older adults in this country. So he goes on to say some more. Like I said, I don't want to go through the whole article and beat it up. I will get it in the group for you guys, but I want to move on to our main topic for the day. Super excited about this. We thought we'd have a little fun, do something a little different, right? Most of the time, I'm always in here talking about Medicare or different insurance things, certainly mostly Medicare, and training on topics within that space. But Joe gave me the idea, and I was like, yeah, we'll mix it up. We'll give you guys something a little new, because let's face it, everybody out there is buying cars from time to time in their lifetime or their career. And I recently bought a new car. And Joe was very impressed, and I was certainly very impressed with the deal that I was able to get, but it's not that new to me. I've been buying cars for a while, and I have very much learned how to be a very savvy and aggressive car buyer. I have actually had car salespeople call me the bully, because I'm the guy that when I go in, I know everything I need to know, and I demand the deal that I want. If I don't get it, I just leave. It's no sweat off my back, because it's not that I have to have. It's not that I need the car so bad that I'm desperate, right? I already have a car. I just want an upgrade. So to give you a little idea of what I'm talking about here, there's 4 rules to car buying that I believe in. I'm going to go through those 4 rules with you, so that next time you want to buy a car, whether it's a used car or a new car, you're going to be able to walk in and get the deal of a lifetime. Guarantee you. But you have to fix this, or you have to go by this. So I want to start with a little bit of history first, because I want to go back to when I was broke or close to broke, and didn't have a car, and then had to re-enter this car buying experience a bit. And another reason why I brought this topic up was because I saw a post maybe a week ago as well that said, oh my God, I hate the whole car buying experience. And I get it, because it can definitely be intimidating, right? Especially if you're walking in to maybe buy a brand new car, right? Which I didn't start buying brand new cars. I started buying used cars, making sure I could maximize my value, get the right deal. And then over a few years, I have now continued to be able to upgrade my ride while keeping my payment about the same. So a couple of prerequisites. Number one, I am not talking about the John Wetmores and Jason Gardners of our industry that can easily just go out and buy a car with cash. I am addressing the majority of us out there that, even though we may be doing well financially or not, we generally, when we purchase a car, unless we're just buying a very inexpensive used car that we can buy for 7 or 10 grand cash, we are generally financing that car, right? I don't want to drive around in a $5,000, $10,000, or even $20,000 car. I want a little nicer car. And I've been able to slowly upgrade my ride without breaking the bank, without wrecking my budget, and keeping my payment pretty much in the same spot, even though my income over these years that I'm going to explain to you has grown substantially. So when it was 2008. I was still new to insurance. I was starting to make some money, but I wasn't setting any records by any means. And I found myself without a car. I'm not going to go into all the details of that. Basically, I had just gotten divorced. And I basically just gave my ex-wife everything. I'm like, here, take the house, take the car, just get me the hell out of this relationship. And I found myself without a car and needing a car. My credit sucked. I did not have great credit. It was probably in the low sixes at that time, just to be honest with you. So I knew that, like, from an affordability standpoint, I'm not going to be able to go in and get a new car. I don't have enough money. It's probably not the smartest decision, and you'll understand more about why that is later. So I was like, I need to find a used car that I can afford, right? But I still want something that I don't just have to go save up 10, 15,000 and just go pay cash for something, or even $5,000 and just get something super cheap. Like, I wanted something that I knew could be reliable, that I knew would be comfortable, and that, I feel good while I'm driving around in. So I found a 2006 Dodge Charger SXT. It was 3 years old, because one of the things that you have to know about cars is that the date the car is made was a year before it's actually sold, right? So a 2025 model was actually manufactured in 2024 and is put out in market in 2024 at the end of the year. We're going to get more into timing a little bit on this later. But I knew, right, that I understood it. Like, okay, this car's about 3, almost 4 years old, right? I understand that it's depreciated some. And I did some research, boom, had a little bit of money that I could throw down on it, and then did the best I could with what I got, right? I wasn't the savvy car buyer, and I definitely wasn't the bully that I am today. But I got a good car. I got a good car that I knew would hold some value, that would take good care of me, right? And would be, most importantly, affordable for me. Started there. I drove that car for about 3 years, took great care of it. And I was like, man, this car is kind of fun, but I'm kind of jealous of these guys that are driving around in the Chargers that have the big fat 492 Hemi in it. So I was starting to get hungry for an upgrade, and I was also starting to make more money. And this was 2011 now. So I'd been driving that other Charger for about 3.5 years. 2011. Now I'm working at Precision Senior Marketing. I'm starting to make some very good money, and I was ready for an upgrade. But I still didn't want to go buy brand new. There's a big reason I generally like to buy used cars most of the time, and is basically because of the value and the depreciation of it, which I'll get into a little bit deeper in a minute. So I went and upgraded to the 2006 Charger Daytona. Much more expensive ride, still the same year. Like, this is a 6-year-old car. Now, the reason that I bought it was because the guy that owned it before me, it was one owner. I did my research, one owner, no wrecks, all the maintenance records, was absolutely cherry. He had only put about 6,600 miles on a car that was 6 years old. So I knew that its value, that it was holding a lot of its value. Now I just had to make sure that I wasn't getting jacked on the price. Did my research, boom, bought the car, put a little bit money down, right? Even rolled in with pre-approved financing on it, which is another power flex that you can do. My financing wasn't great, but I had a credit union I'd been working with for a while, Austin Telco, right here in Austin, and used that to help me get the deal that I wanted, right? That I could still afford. Got married to Grace. You guys all know my wife probably, in 2014, and my wife's car was a little lackluster, and I wasn't, as a husband and someone that's kind of takes traditional roles in that aspect, I wasn't happy about knowing that my wife was driving down in a broke down beater, and I didn't want to get the phone call that she was broke down on I-35 somewhere on the interstate. So I did the logical thing, and I traded in my Charger, and I bought a brand new Jeep Grand Cherokee at 2015, gave that to her, because I already also forgot to preface this. I did have a $2,000 beater Honda that I kept on the side as my commuter, because I didn't want to drive my Daytona everywhere. So bought her the Grand Cherokee, negotiated a phenomenal deal, got out of that thing with equity, leading right off the lot. And I'll get into some tips. A couple of years go by, I pick up a 2016 Cadillac, again, used car, found somebody else, one owner, excellent condition, had only put 9,000 miles on this car. And I bought I think I bought that in 2019, if I remember correctly. So again, 3-year-old car, found it with super low miles, excellent condition, walked in with pre-approved financing again, like just walked in the dealer. I'm like, hey, I'm buying that car. I just need to make sure, that we get the price right in this area, and I already have financing for it. Let's go. Piece of cake. It was the shortest car purchase I've ever made. 2024. Yeah. About October of last year. No, I think it was October 2023. My apologies. Traded in the Cadillac because it was starting to have some maintenance issues that I knew were coming. And if you know anything about Cadillacs, they're very expensive to maintain. And I really didn't want to spend the level of money that I needed to maintain that car. So traded it in knowing that I had equity and bought a 2023 brand new Jeep Grand Cherokee. Grace drives that around, and I've been driving the 2015 Grand Cherokee that we took care of, was paid off. But I'm getting kind of tired of driving that. And I was like, man, it's time for an upgrade again. I own this Jeep outright. I've got equity in it. I got a little cash that I can throw down. And so my hunger for getting me a new ride started to surface again. And I started to shop. Now, I'm going to get into rule number 1 here in a second. But the car that I ended up picking up was a 2025 Silverado Trail Boss LT. It's like a $65,000 pickup. And I did not pay anywhere near $65,000 for it. So we're going to get into this real quick. Now, rule number 1, when you're thinking about buying a car, where are my banners? Rule number 1. Rule number 1 is start with your budget. Don't start with the car that you want. Now, again, if you're making the kind of money where money is no object, right? Then yeah, fine. Go get your dream car, pay kids. Like if that's not the deal. But for the rest of us that are still like, hey, we need to finance a car so that we can actually afford it properly. And we want a nice car. We don't want a piece of shit, right? We need to start with our budget. Don't start with your dream car. And the reason I say that is if you start with your dream car or the car you really want, your ego is going to get attached to that more, and you might end up overspending. Or you're also going to give the dealer, the seller, a little bit of leverage on you because he knows you really want that car. So he doesn't have to move as much. He doesn't have to negotiate as much because he knows how bad you want it. He knows what your motivations are. Don't start that way. Start with what you can actually afford, right? What you want to afford. So start with your budget first. Figure out what your budget is and then go look for your car. So budget. Again, I'm not talking about cash buyers here. I'm talking about people that are financing vehicles because they want a nice ride and they can be disciplined with their money to do it right. So when you're figuring out your budget, make sure that you also include insurance. What's the fuel look like? Is this a high maintenance vehicle, and what does it cost if it is maintenance? What do all those costs kind of look like? Include that stuff when you're thinking about your budget. But more importantly, when you're coming up with your budget, here's a rule of thumb that I've heard several times, and I've even heard this from people that make way more money than me, and I do all right. They said, hey, don't buy one of those cars if you can't afford to buy 3 of them. And I would even say probably push that closer to 5. So in other words, if you can't reasonably afford to purchase 5 of that vehicle, you got no business buying 1. 5 might be a little aggressive or a little overly conservative. I tend to be a little conservative on my monthly budgets. I like to give myself room in all cases that I can to flex and take care of emergencies when they pop up, and then enjoy myself as well. But so I would say at minimum, if you can't afford to buy 3 of that car, you have no business buying 1 because you're going to stretch yourself too thin, right? That is rule number 1, period. Start with the budget that you need and then find the car that meets the budget. Don't start with the car and try to force it into your budget. It's going to be a lot harder that way. And you're going to end up getting railroaded. Number 2, this is an easy one. Oh, it's not an easy one, but it's a simple concept. Know the numbers and know them accurately. There are, when you're buying a car through financing, there are several levers that you can pull on to try to get the right price and the right deal that you need, right? So, and I'm going to go through these numbers with you, and I'm going to go through them a little bit in detail, but real quick. Number 1, you obviously have the price of the car, right? They call it MSRP, manufacturer's suggested retail price. That's especially if it's brand new. But the price of the car is one of those levers. understanding the depreciation of a vehicle will help you with understanding and getting that price as accurate as possible. If you have a trade-in, be honest, do you actually have a good trade? What is your real trade-in value, I should say? Don't let the dealer tell you what your trade-in value is, because he's going to screw you, because he's trying to turn a profit, right? So know the honest value of your trade-in, the honest value. Don't let your attachment and your ego, because you've been driving the car for 5 years, be like, no, it's worth so much more. It's not. It's worth exactly what it is, period. So know what the real trade-in value is, and know what the resale value is to a private party as well. Because depending on the timing that you have, you could get, if you have an old car that you want to sell, your resale value to a private seller will be much higher than a trade-in, right? The problem with that, though, is your car in demand? Would a private buyer want your car? And do you have enough time to wait around waiting for a private seller to buy your car? Whereas dealers, if you're going to trade it in, they all want cars, period. So they will definitely buy it. It's just, again, now you're negotiating the price of that deal. But know what your trade-in value is. Next, the resale, or I said the resale value if you're doing a private seller. Down payment. Do you have any money to put down? I would advise it if you do, because it's going to help you out in the long run. But you don't have to. I think 3 or 4 of the cars that I listed that I bought recently, no money down whatsoever. And then finally, your interest rate. What kind of interest rate can you get? And that is, of course, based on your credit rating. If you know what your credit rating is, that's going to be a huge deal for you, because then you'll know where you can probably buy a car. If you don't understand that concept, you can get all of these other things right, and then when you walk in to get the deal, and then they screw you on financing because they're like, your credit rating's not that great. We're going to go through like a B+ lender, and we're going to jack you with 12%. And then your payment all of a sudden is way up here. You're like, wait a second, I thought that I could afford this car. Like, what's going on? Something's off, right? And then ultimately, the biggest flex on that in regards to interest rate is if you do come in with pre-approved financing. So if you go to your bank, your credit union, someone who already knows, like, and trust you, then get pre-approved financing for the amount that you want. And then that's a super flex when you walk in there, and just keep that in your back pocket. Don't let them know. Or if, and I'm not using this as a braggadocious thing, but if you know your credit is really solid, like mine's pretty damn strong. It's not perfect, but it's really solid. If you know that, that's also another ace that you can keep in the back of your pocket, right? Because I don't always go in and get pre-approved financing. I left my credit union, and I'm not, Chase is cool, but I haven't tried them out for pre-approved financing. But generally speaking, that's not the issue for me, right? The issue for me is making sure that I get the prices on my trade-in and on the car that I'm buying, right? That's the key. Now, a few details in that. When you're looking at the price of the car, the actual car, right? If we're buying a brand new car, brand spanking new, like the truck I just bought, you have to understand that depreciation is huge on those cars, and you want to try to get ahead of that curve. The average depreciation of a brand new car is 16% in the first year, which means a $40,000 car at MSRP is going to lose about $7,200 of value in that first year, right? It's also going to depreciate an average of somewhere around 12 to 15% over each next year to about 5 years. So a brand new vehicle is only going to be worth on average about 45% of its original price after 5 years. So if you understand that, then you need to understand that, like, hey, I need to be able to get into this car at a level that I can stay ahead of the depreciation curve to make sure that I have good equity in it, right? So that it becomes a little more of an asset, because I can now use it in future deals. That's what I'm trying to explain there in that. Whereas a used car is going to have way lower depreciation because it's already depreciated, right? So for example, when I bought that 2006 Dodge Charger that was already 6 years old, it's already at the bottom of its depreciation chart for the most part. And because it had extremely low miles, because it was taken care of, the guy just kept it in a garage, rubbed it with a diaper, it was holding a lot more of its value. So I knew if I could get the right price, I'm walking into a car that's going to have good value and probably still have a little bit of equity in it for me to get started. Fairly simple. Trade-in value. If you're not sure how to figure out what your real trade-in value is, check out Kelley Blue Book. This is a great site, and it is definitely usable. Where did it go? There it is. I want to share it with you guys. So if you haven't ever seen this website before, Kelley Blue Book, right? They kind of keep their finger on the pulse of the car industry in regards to prices, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So this is a very simple site that you can use to figure out what your car is worth, or what any car is worth for the most part. I use it very strong for my vehicle. And and here's the key. If you're going to figure out what your trade-in value is, like, you've got to be honest about the condition of your car, right? How you value your car intrinsically doesn't matter. The dealer doesn't give a shit that you've been driving this car for 6 years. It's been your favorite car. It's had no maintenance problems, and you love it, love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. They don't care about your attachment to the car. They just want hard numbers. So you have to roll in with those hard numbers. So just to give an example, I'm going to price my car's value as an example here. I had a 2015 Jeep Grand Cherokee. It had 110,000 miles on it. Super easy. It was the base model. It wasn't anything super fancy. Had standard equipment on it, and it was white, right? I'm trading it in. If you're selling it, this would be a private seller. It'll give you that value, which will be higher than the trade-in value. But if I'm trading it in, here we go. This is the part that I was talking about when you got to be honest, man. You might think my car is in excellent condition. It's probably not, especially if it's a 10-year-old Jeep like that one was. This car was in good condition, right? It had a little bit of fender rash that someone put on it, certainly not me. And it didn't have any mechanical real problems, though. Mechanics were great, but it did have some cosmetic problems. So I put it at good and hit next. And it's going to give me a range. I don't want to give them my email, but it gave me this range right there. And it says, hey, your trade-in range is 6,200 to 8,700. Average will be about 74. So that's a range. So when I priced my car, I just gave it a flat $7,000. And I probably could have been a little higher. Maybe I should have said 75. Maybe I should have even said 8. But I thought about it. I'm like, well, my car's not going to be at the top end of that range because it does have cosmetic damage. Probably needs some new brakes, even though they're still pretty good. It's got a big crack in the windshield. Yeah. And so I was like, 7K. 7K is good. I felt strong with that number. I felt that I was being honest on both sides of the equation. I was being honest to the dealer that I'm trying to sell the car to, and I'm being honest about the value of the car. So give you an example is what I came in with there. But you can easily figure out what that is. Be very honest about that point. Moving along, resale value. Again, if you have the time and your car is something that other private buyers would want, then certainly feel free to take the time to try to sell your car to a private buyer, because you will get more money for it. But again, timing could be an issue. And my situation with that Jeep, I'm like, I would have to put in some money into that car to get a private buyer to want it, because it's got a cracked windshield. It's got a rubbed up fender that's got marks and a little dent and damage in it, right? And it's got some old brakes. So, I mean, I'm going to have to spend money to get anywhere near the value. So I'm like, I'm going to have to spend all the money in the difference just to get the value that I want from a private seller. And then I got to hope that a private buyer actually wants a 2015 Jeep Grand Cherokee. They probably don't, but I know for a fact that a dealer wants it. Dealer will buy every car they can get their hands on if they think they can resell it somewhere, whether it be in an auction or wherever, that they can get it and get it sold and make a little bit of jelly. And these guys, guarantee you, they're probably going to put the screws to somebody on that Jeep somewhere down the line. So next one under this know your numbers section, down payment. And again, down payment is just how much money do you have that you're willing to throw at the car. I would recommend to at least bring enough down payment to cover your tax, title, and license. And if you're not sure what that is, there's an auto loan calculator that I'm going to show you that you can use as well. And I'm going to demo that here in just a second. But it's good. Like I bought several cars where I didn't put anything down because I either had a trade-in that had enough equity in it, or I was getting just a really good price on the car itself. To like, I can get in this car with my trade-in. I don't need to put money down and I'm good. But in most cases, I would generally advise at least bring enough to cover tax, title, and license, which depending on what state you're in is going to probably range somewhere around maybe $2,500 to $5,500, somewhere in there. The tax, title, and license on the new truck I just bought was $3,166. And I put $4,000 down to cover that and get me a little ahead of the curve. And then finally, right, try to get a good interest rate. And if you can, get pre-approved financing when you walk in the dealer. Next up, know the seller's motivations. What is motivating the seller to buy? Now, in regards to a used car, right, those motivations could be a little different. Let's say, for example, you're buying from a private party, right? You're not going to a dealership. You saw an ad. Some dude named Joe down the road has this car for sale and he's trying to sell it. What are his motivations for selling the car? Did he overbuy himself? Maybe he lost his job and now he can't afford the payments. So he's just trying to avoid repo. So he's desperate, but you're probably not going to get a good price out of that guy because he needs to cover what he already owes. And he could be upside down on that car, which means buying it from him screws you too. So be aware of that thought process, right? Alternatively, is that private seller trying to make a profit? Maybe they own the car outright already. Maybe they don't owe anybody on that car and they're trying to make some skrilla. Maybe they do owe some money on it, but they have some equity and they're trying to turn a profit, right? And maybe they're not in a rush. So they're not going to be easy to negotiate with. They're like, nope, $12,000, not selling it, nothing cheaper, right? As a matter of fact, I did this. There was one car that I realized now that I left out. I had, for a while, I bought a Mini Cooper on the side that I was having fun with. And I sold that one to a private seller. And I was very firm on my price because I knew it was fair. And I didn't need to sell it. I just like, I'm kind of done with this car. Let me get rid of it. So I was very strong on the price and thankfully found someone that also really wanted a Mini Cooper. And then finally, under a private seller, like what are their motivations? Again, are there urgent needs? Are they moving out of state and they got to get rid of this ride or whatever right? Or maybe it's grandma's car that passed away and they just don't need it and they want to get rid of it so they can get some money out of it because they need the money. What is the seller's motivation? The reason that's important is because that's going to give you tools when you go into the deal, right? If you know the dude is upside down on his car note and he's just trying to get you to take over payments, that's not going to be a good deal for you most likely, right? If you know that the private seller is trying to turn a profit, you're going to have to come in and negotiate strong and hard to try to get a good deal on it. And unless they're being very fair, again, just know your numbers. And then again, do they have urgent needs? Because if they have a very urgent need, you might be able to negotiate and get a better price on it. The big thing to understand again about used cars, right? As I said, new cars depreciate big time. A used car, 5 years or more, doesn't really depreciate much, right? Like I talked about that 2006 Daytona that I bought, it was 6 years old. It's at the bottom level of its depreciation, but because of the quality of condition and the low mileage and everything, the value is still quite high. So I was able to get into a really strong vehicle there. So understanding that part of used cars that, hey, if I buy a used car today, it's not going to depreciate 20% in that first year. It's probably only going to depreciate somewhere around 5 to 8% at most, assuming you keep taking care of it, right? If you rack up tons of miles on it, you beat the hell out of it, and you don't take care of it, well, obviously it's going to appreciate a lot. But if you keep it in good condition, keep the mileage reasonable, which is usually somewhere between 12 to 15,000 miles a year, you can maintain a very low level of depreciation on a used car to keep a high value on it, or high-ish value, right? Dealers, used car dealers, what is their motivation? Very simple. They just want to turn a profit, man. And these guys can be tough because they're not doing it like a brand new car. Right? Brand new car. Nobody's ever driven. It's got 4 miles on it from just taking it off the truck and parking it in the lot. These guys went to auction a lot of times and bought a car, or they got a car from someone else's trade-in. So they know what they paid for that car, and they know that they're trying to turn a profit to sell it to you. So again, this is a situation where you're going to have to go to something like Kelley Blue Book, really look hard at that car, figure out what's going on and what is a fair price, and don't get yourself screwed, because a used car dealer will definitely jack up the price because he's trying to maximize profit. That is his only motivation. He does not care about you, truthfully. He'll say, he's like, I would really like to see you drive this car, man. It would mean a lot to me. Yeah, he doesn't. He just wants money in his pocket, right? So understand that those guys might be a little tougher to negotiate with. But again, it depends on the spread that he might have on that car. So think about some of that. New cars, totally different. The seller's motivation, new cars, again, still to turn a profit, but they have other motivations too. And it also depends on who you're talking to. If we're talking to the owner of the dealership, his motivation is certainly to turn a profit, but his real motivation is to get cars off that lot. They want cars off the lot. They need cars moved off so they can bring new cars in, especially if they have a backup of older vehicles. I mentioned this earlier. A car that sold as a 2025 is actually rolled out. It's actually manufactured and produced in 2024 and rolled out for sale. Might even be 2023, and then it's rolled out for sale, usually sometime around the end of 2024, right? So right now we're in 2025 as an example. Somewhere probably starting, I bet, around September, maybe even sooner, you're going to start to see the 2026 models, even though it's not the year 2026, right? They're always sold kind of a manufactured a year behind, sold a year ahead, however you want to look at that. So that can play into some things. And the reason I bring that up is because if it's 2025 October and 2026 models are coming off the truck, but they still have 2025 models sitting on the lot, brand new, you can probably get a deal on that 2025. When I bought the 2015 Jeep Grand Cherokee, that's exactly what happened, right? They were already rolling out 2016 models, trying to sell them, and they had a 2015 demo that only had about 80 miles on it. I think they had loaned it a couple of times to people or used it to test drive, and it was just sitting there. Basically, I mean, for all intents and purposes, it was brand new, but it had a handful of miles because they let people drive it as test drives or maybe a loaner here and there. Smoking hot deal I got on that because they wanted it off the lot. They had a very high motivation to get that thing off the lot because I got a 2016 that I got to sell. They're already coming in, right? So timing on a new car can be very important in that. So if you're looking at, hey, I want to buy a new car, hold out sometimes until around late third or early fourth quarter, because a lot of times you can find a brand new vehicle, brand new, but it's a year old theoretically, even though it's really not, right? It hasn't been touched. It's still on the lot. It's immaculate. So that can be one good way to get a deal in that regards. So that was timing. Inventory, that kind of goes in with it. So in one of my notes here is to be observant, and then I listed inventory next to it. So my salesman that I was working with made one very bad error. He let me know how much inventory he has of the vehicle that I wanted. He didn't do it purposely. He did it accidentally. I called him ahead of time and said, hey, I'm looking for this car. I'm interested in buying. I'm not 100% on the color, but I'm kind of leaning towards this color. And he's like, cool. So he pulled up the one color I said that I was kind of leaning towards. He had it ready to go. We test drove it, immediately fell in love with it. I knew this is the truck that I'm going to want, really like it. Now I just got to make sure I get the deal that I want. And I already had all my numbers ahead of time. But then I said, it's like, hey, just to make sure I'm not an idiot, I was like, can you show me an all black one? I want to see a blacked out version before I buy this new color, this Cypress green that y'all came out with. I want to see the all black one. Can you show me that one? And he's like, yeah, I can. He's like, but you're going to have to get back in the truck. We got to drive over to him. I'm just like, drive over to him. And I'm already like on the dealer lot. I can already see truck. There is just rows and rows of trucks. but they didn't have the all black Trail Boss sitting out there like I asked for. So he drives me a couple of blocks away to their other lot. There were probably 500 Chevy pickups sitting in that lot alone, much less the other one. Several, about 15 to 20 of them were black Chevy Silverado Trail Bosses. They had about another 8 or so that were blue and red, and they had a couple of gray ones, and I was the only one they had that in the cypress green color was the one I ended up buying. But he showed me that, and I saw that, and I didn't say anything, but I was like, holy shit. That is a lot of inventory. They're backed up. They have too much inventory to get these trucks out at the clip they want, which is why they were also offering the deals they were offering. And that was one of the other things. I used this site. Nothing like genius here. You've probably seen it before. Let me pull it back up. Auto Trader. I'm a big fan of Auto Trader. So I will use this to get a lot of the research. I can pull up, find all kinds of stuff, right? So I had used this to look when I started to look for vehicles, and I stumbled across their ad that was in there, and they were showing like $12,000 rebates and incentives on these trucks. And I was like, that seems pretty interesting. That told me is like, and I knew ahead of time, I was like, they're running a really big deal. Maybe they're having trouble moving these trucks. Maybe they have too many. And then I confirmed that when the dude showed me the lot in the back. I was like, holy shit, man, y'all got a lot of these trucks. So when I'm talking about know the seller's motivations, like they need to get those trucks off of the lot. They barely had enough room to even drive around the lot because it was so crammed full of vehicles. So knowing that, I know that I can negotiate a harder deal with these guys because they're desperate. I'm not desperate to buy the truck. They're desperate to sell me a truck. I'm going to win. So if I know my seller's motivations, I can come in and again, be the bully and make sure that I get the deal that I want. Okay, fair enough. And then the final rule, and then I'm going to go through some example stuff. The final rule is stick to your guns, man. More importantly, stick to your budget, but stick to your guns, period. Couple of sub rules under that. Never take the first pencil. When you're sitting down there and it's like, cool, you want to get the car, awesome, let's look at it, right? And he's going to write it up and tell you, boom, this is what you got to trade in. This is what we want to value your trade in at. Do you have any money you want to throw down? Okay, let's put that. And this is what we're selling the car. And that's the first pencil. Don't ever take the first pencil. Never, ever, never, ever, never, ever. No matter how good you even think it looks, don't take the first pencil that they give you. Just understand that is their first offer and you can still do better. Okay. Next one, stick to your guns, man. Look out for the turn. These guys turned on me 5 times during the process of me buying this last truck. And what I mean by turn is they bring in the next guy, right? The salesman can't get it done because I told him no. And I'll explain the deal they tried to screw me on. And then they bring the sales manager over and he's trying to get it done. That dude can't get it closed. Then the finance manager comes over. And finally, I had to go through the finance manager 3 times. We talked about it. I'm like, nope. He goes back, comes back. Nope. Goes back, comes back. Or actually, he goes back and then he sends the salesman over and said, hey, finance manager's in with your deal. He agrees to your terms. And then I had to go argue with 2 more finance managers to make sure that I got the credit rate that I wanted or the interest rate that I wanted and haggle over that a little bit. As well as warranties and a few other things. So look out for the turn, right? Because if you don't take the first pencil, most likely they're going to bring in another salesperson or sales manager to try to close you. Okay? Be prepared for that. And be proud of yourself. Like, hey, if they turn on you and they bring you another person, you're doing it the right way, I promise, right? And I got turned on 4 times, 5 different people that they brought to me. Practice what I call the walkout move. Don't be the desperate buyer, man. You need to walk in with the authority, right? Practice what I call the walkout move. The walkout move is like, nope, don't get that deal. Stand up and start leaving, right? When they brought the first pencil to me for this truck I just bought, it was absolutely asinine what they put on paper. I couldn't believe. I was like, wow, these guys are assholes. They really think I'm that stupid. Okay, cool. I got him for sure. Like I knew I had him. But I was like, okay. And as soon as he brought it to me, I just looked at it. I didn't argue with him about it. Nope. I just saw the deal and I went, no, that's not going to work. And I stood up, boop, just stood right up and held my hand out like a professional and said, sorry, man, that's not going to work for me. It was like and I blamed myself. I'm like, I was like, I'm usually pretty good at math, but I guess I must have looked at something wrong. My numbers are way off. That this is not the deal. And he's like, well, wait a second. Wait. Right? Because again, he's the desperate one. He's desperately trying to sell a car. He's got backed up on inventory. He probably needs a commission, needs to hit his quota, right? He's probably trying to get an incentive of his own to get all those trucks off the lot because he might get a little bonus for every trail boss that he moves because they had way too many of them, right? So he's the desperate one. So as soon as he brought that first pencil to me, I just stood up. It's like, sorry. It's like, I'm usually good at math, but yeah, I'm way off here. Sorry, I didn't mean to waste your time. He's like, well, wait a second. Let's look at this a little more. He's like, what do you find that you're off on? I'm like, well, there's a few things that are off. And then I just went right to the trade-in value because they were trying to wreck me on trade-in. I told you earlier that on this particular deal, I thought my trade-in was valued at $7,000, and I was very strict and I was very honest with that price. I didn't feel like I was screwing the dealer, and I didn't feel like I was screwing myself. I probably could have got another $500, but it would have been hard. Right now, if I would have fixed the couple of items that were wrong with that vehicle, I could have probably sold it for 12 to a private person, but I really didn't want to do that. And then I got to wait until a private person wants a 10-year-old white Grand Cherokee with 110,000 miles. Dealer will take it all day. So if they wanted to give me $3,000, so that was the first number I pointed to. I'm like, well, this number is definitely way off. And he's like, okay. He's like, well, let me see. Let me go talk to my finance manager. So our sales manager. So he goes back over to the sales manager, then comes back and he's like, sales manager said he could give you 4,500. I did the exact same thing again. Stood up, held out my hand to shake his hands. Like, nah, sorry. It's like, that's not going to do it for me. I was like, I feel pretty firm that car's an honest $7,000. And he's like, well, okay, hang on. He's like, give me a second. And he takes off. And now they bring the turn in. And then the sales manager comes over to me and he reinforces, like, man, he's like, look, we looked at your car. Like, they valued it $3,250. He's like, I could come up to 4,500. And I'm like, yeah. I was like, I'm sorry. That's not going to do it for me. And he's like, if I could come up to, and then he just flipped the numbers. Like it was so arbitrary and stupid. He's like, what if I could do 5,400? Would that help you get in the car? He's like, and finally he was just like, would $6,000 get it done? Like he just kept coming at me. And finally I was like, I mean, 6 is good. I was like, but 7 is the number. And he's like, obviously 7 is better. He's like, and then finally I broke that dude down and he was finally gave me the one statement that you always want to hear, which is, what is it going to take, Mr. Merwin, to get this deal done with you? Again, I stood up ready to walk out, but I grabbed a pen and I wrote down the 3 numbers that I wanted. I wrote down the number that I was willing to pay for the truck, right? I wrote down the number that I wanted for my trade-in, and I wrote down the number that I was willing to put in down payment. I wrote those down. I was like, if you can give me that, I'll buy the truck today. If you can't, no worries. It's just not a deal for me. And I stood up again. He's like, let me see what I can do. Goes and talks to the finance manager. Then the finance manager comes over and talks to me about these. Like, man, he's like, I don't know if we can come up with that. I'm like, well, that's no problem if you can't. I was like, but this is the deal that I need to buy this vehicle. Like, and it is what it is. And he's like, no problem. Hang on. And then next thing I know, my original salesman comes back and he's like, they'll do it. They'll do it. They'll give you the price that you negotiated for the truck itself, which was already marked down quite a bit. Like they were being pretty fair on the truck price. I got lucky on that spot with research, right? Because I researched that truck at several other dealers who did not have inventory problems, who were in nicer areas of Austin, and they were firm at 65 and 62 grand on their truck price. And I'll be damned if I was paying 65 grand for that truck. I'm not paying full MSRP, never, ever, never, ever, ever, because when I drive off the lot, it's going to drop about 16% on average, which means I'm going to lose close to $12,000 in value as soon as I drive it off the lot, right? I don't want to be upside down in my loan arrangement or anything like that. I want to be ahead of the depreciation curve in an equity space. Always. That is the way to do it. So I just stood up again, I was like, hey, no, Chucky finally came over. I'm sorry. The salesman said, hey, they're going to give you the deal. It's yours. We'll do it. Truck for this price, truck at $50K, down payment, trade in, everything just like you want it. We just got to see what your credit rating is. But I already knew my credit rating's smoking. That's the least of my issues, right? The only thing I didn't do on this one was walk in with pre-approved financing, but I knew I've got this thing licked. So that is pretty much the basics. I do want to show you one more thing. If you're like, hey, how do I figure out my budget? I want to show you just a real simple, let me refresh it real fast. All right. And to share this with you guys. I mean, the internet's amazing, number one, because everything is out there for you. But this is a real simple site just called calculator.net. It has an auto loan calculator, even gives you the amortization schedule on there. So if you're not sure, you can either do it based on price, or the best way is to do it. So if you know what your monthly budget is for your car, let's say, for example, it is $500. And let's say you're willing to do it for 60 months. Now, understand the easiest way to beat the depreciation curve is to get a loan for fewer months, right? Because after 5 years, the car's value is below 50%. So you want to try to get ahead of that. So if you want to really stay ahead of it, like try to finance a car in 48 months or 36 months. Your payment's going to be higher, right? So let's just use this as an example. And let's say your credit kind of sucks and maybe you can only get 9.5%. Is the dealer offering any cash incentives on the price of the car? Don't know. Do you have a trade-in and down payment? So I'm leaving these in there as examples. And it's Texas, so I know that sales tax is 6.25%. And title and registration fees are usually right around this number. Okay. If I calculate that, it's going to tell me that I can only afford a car that's worth $23,500. Right. So remember when I opened the show up, I said, hey, start with your budget. Sorry. I don't know. This thing's acting strange today. Hope it hadn't been like that for a while. But that's the basic rules. Like rule number one, start with the budget, not the car. Know the numbers. Understand the seller's motivations and stick to your guns. Practice the walkout move. that's a fun show today. Something a little different to have some fun with. I will see you guys next week, Tuesday training, and we do have some new guests coming up. I'll tell you about them soon. Take it easy.